people think not-for-profits and they don't really understand how difficult it is. It's harder to run a not-for-profit, I think, than it is to run a for-profit business.
It's so much harder. It's so much harder.
Give me that title again. You know what? I'm going to have you say it. Don't worry about it. Ready? Yeah, kid. Welcome everybody back to another episode of the Handsome Homebuyer Podcast. My name is Charles, a.k.a. the Handsome Homebuyer. Obviously, if you have a house that smells like cat pee, dated from the 1960s, hell, it doesn't really matter. It can be brand new. If you want to sell it, I sure as hell want to buy it. 516, what's our new phone number? I keep saying that 77 sold thing and screwed it up. Hold on. Bear with me. 516-518-5515. Yeah, people really come at me online for not remembering stuff. Like, I'm going to get bashed for not remembering the phone number. When I do the food reviews and I look up the names because I can't pronounce them, people bash me about that stuff too. But regardless, so, very exciting. How long have we known each other? We've known each other a long time.
Yes, we have.
We originally met, so before we get into this, right, tell everybody exactly who you are and what you do. Give us like a 30-second kind of very high level, and then we'll dive into it.
My name is Diane Manders. I'm with Habitat for Humanity of Long Island. I am the Director of Real Estate and Homeownership. I've been there for 5 years. Loving it. Love what we do.
It is very cool.
Changing, I think, like Sal says, he's changing things with his
Changing
builds.
the way the world is built, yes.
We're really changing. You know, what was low-income housing is now what we call workforce housing, and we're really changing with the times. So we got some cool stuff going on.
So Habitat, I know a little bit about Habitat, but I want you to elaborate on it. Habitat was an initiative that was Jimmy Carter's wife? Who did that? Where did it come?
He was our most famous volunteer.
Okay.
It was started by another family, just, I believe it was in the 70s, and they said, hey, we're just going to do this, and we're going to get some volunteers, and we're going to help people.
Okay.
And then now, of course, it's a worldwide organization.
Like massive. I don't think people even have any idea how big Habitat for Humanity is.
Habitat is huge. So that's Habitat for Humanity International.
Yeah.
What most people think of as Habitat for Humanity. We're an affiliate of theirs, but they're all independent.
Okay.
So Habitat for Humanity of Long Island is 36 years old. They started this in the 80s here. Just another cool story. Just someone said, hey, you know what? We can do Habitat right here on Long Island, out in Suffolk County, where there was still a ton of land, in the 80s. And so we just had our gala last year of 35 years. So we've built 246 homes.
Wow.
Most
That's
in
really
Suffolk
cool.
County. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Now we merged with Habitat of Peconic and Habitat of Nassau.
Okay.
So now we have the whole island.
So these were really before independently run operations.
They were.
Nassau, Suffolk, and Peconic.
Yep.
And now it's all one.
Now it's all one. Mm-hmm.
So how does it work? I mean, obviously it's all under one corporate umbrella. They're not like franchise type of things. How does a chapter get started? How does it all work?
So it gets started because you have to reach out to International,
Okay.
Which is headquartered in Georgia. And that's where Habitat is run from all over the world. And they will give you, the guidelines, the bylaws. Habitat started as a Christian organization, so they still believe in tithe, so we tithe. To International, tithe is like when you belong to a church and you give them a certain percentage of your income. So
yeah,
Habitat
like
believes in
10%.
tithing. So it's kind of like a franchise. Instead of a franchise fee, you're paying a tithe to be part of that.
To Habitat
To International.
International.
Yep. And that's how they
Oh.
fund their programs all over the world.
I did
And
not know that.
Of course, we all use, their logos and their branding and all that kind of stuff. And they do have a tremendous amount of support, International, available to
Mm-hmm.
individual affiliates. So if something goes wrong or right, or you need to start a new program, they know exactly how to do it, and you just download the stuff from them. So it's super helpful.
Got it. So basically, anyone in any area in the country can go to Habitat International and say, I want to start, is it called a branch?
An
What is
affiliate.
it? An affiliate. I
Yep.
want to start an affiliate in this area.
Yep.
Really?
Yeah, if there isn't one, but it would be surprising that there wouldn't be at this point, because Habitat's everywhere.
And that's why everybody kind of operates on their, got it. And that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, they're independent.
So explain Habitat's mission, exactly how it comes together, because it's fascinating. It's a lot of great people on the building side, on the finance side. You guys, you help a lot of people that otherwise would never be able to get into homes. So it's very cool, but it's very, very elaborate. I think when people think Habitat, they just think they've seen pictures of people like they have like a work trip and they go down and help for like a day. But it's a very sophisticated operation. There's a lot that goes into it. I mean, you're building houses.
Yeah.
Hey, we're doing it for profit, and it's really, really difficult. You guys are doing it with volunteers, and you need to get, donations, and it's a whole to do. So how does it all come together so people understand?
So for us, what we've done here is very similar to what International does. At our affiliate, we have a good amount of people. We have 42 people employed at our affiliate, which a lot of habitats are run just by volunteers. But here, you know how things move here, and you want to get things done here. We actually have our own construction staff. So we build year-round, 5 days a week.
Wow.
Year-round. No matter what the weather, we have our own staff that's building. So we can build everything ourselves because that's just the easiest way to do it. Some habitats that don't have that kind of workforce are outsourcing and using contractors. We're very fortunate not to have to do that. And so we always keep building. The way that it works is we've got the staff building the houses. They're building with volunteers. They're also building with the future homeowners. So that's what's different about Habitat for Humanity is that we believe in sweat equity.
Yeah.
Habitat was built on the theory that we should be able to give people a hand up, but not a hand out. It's very important to Habitat. So for us, that means that we can help them get a mortgage, but they have to be able to qualify for an affordable mortgage. They have to, have done some work on their credit. They have to have a small amount of savings. It's very small compared to what it would take normally to get into a house, but you have to have 1% of whatever the purchase price of the house is going to be. And then you have to come out and build 300 hours.
300 hours.
300 hours.
Wow, that's really cool though.
Yeah. And in that 300 hours, that's includes financial classes they're going to take. We have them do community service in the town they're going to move into. They're going to come and work at our restore, but 210 hours of the 300 is actual building time. They'll build their house or others in the program. So then it all comes together because we lay out all the money it's going to take to build the house.
Okay.
Because of course we're there on site buying building materials. We're just real estate investors. And that's what's so cool about being on this podcast. People don't understand that.
That is really cool.
Habitat is a real estate investor, except we just don't do it for profit. We do it to build the community.
So let's I kind of want to chop this up into pieces so I myself and everybody else can understand. So let's say there's somebody out there. You guys are building on average. So if you build what, how many houses was it?
About 8 houses a year.
Okay, so you build 8 houses a year. For the people that are out there that are looking for an opportunity to, Long Island is probably one of the most expensive places, if not, Nassau and Suffolk, the most expensive counties in the country, or lack of affordability. If somebody has a dream of home ownership that otherwise can't realize that dream unless they work with someone like Habitat for Humanity, and they hear this podcast and they're like, I would love to be able to buy a Habitat home, what is the process? What do they do?
So the first thing would be go to our website, which is habitatliny.org. Unfortunately, applications are not open at all times, and they're not open right now because, as I'm sure you know, we're dealing with a land shortage. So when we have houses that we're already building, it's because we already chose those families maybe a year or so before. So what we have in inventory now that we're going to be building over the next year and a half, there are families for. So as we get more inventory, then we open applications. So you can put your name in on our website, and you'll be advised next time we open up applications.
Okay.
And then they do have to earn a certain amount, which is based on HUD, 50 to 80% of AMI.
Okay.
If they earn that and they have 1% in assets, a typical home of ours, as you know, even a basic Habitat home is going to sell for $500,000.
They have to earn 50. The family has to earn 50% or less or more, or has
in between.
In between what?
In between 50% and 80% of AMI. So the household income of the family has to kind of fit in that niche.
Okay, perfect. Makes sense. So right now I think that's 125,000 for this area. 150 is AMI.
Right, and that would be for a family of 4. So if you're a single person applying, it's probably about 55 or 60 is the starting point.
Okay.
And it goes up to maybe 80,000 or 85. It's tight. And then as the family gets bigger, it goes higher. So it depends upon how many occupants of the house there are.
Got it. And then you need 1% of whatever the sale price of the house is in the bank.
Right.
Got it. So if it's a $500,000 house, you need $5,000 in the bank.
And then the last but most important piece is they have to have a need, what we call a critical need for other housing. Because as you said, everybody on Long Island would be willing to do this, and we just don't have the inventory for that. So thank God we have a volunteer family selection committee, and you just mentioned you know someone that's on it. because they have the really difficult task, you know. We'll get 100 applications, you know, for 3 houses in a 2-week span. And so we're gonna look for the people that we feel are the most in immediate need that Habitat can help, because everybody wants the opportunity. And so in terms of need, it can be that their rent is just not affordable for them. It can be overcrowding, which is huge on Long Island because they're all living together to try to make ends meet. Or it can be that they're really living in a situation where they are living with mold, or they're living with a roof that's leaking because it's, you know, their cousin's sister's place and they can't afford anywhere else to go. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for families that are in need. It could be one person. We consider one person a family, or their situation is they're in a shelter because they got kicked out. And then the committee has to determine who has the most need.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And then, so that happens, and you select somebody, or select, you know, approximately 8 people a year, depending on the volume. And well, I'm happy that we're doing this for a number of different reasons, because I feel like you guys should be able to build, you know, 25 homes a year.
Me too.
And getting the word out so that you guys can get the resources in order to do it. Hopefully this helps in some way. And I also would love for you guys to have 1,000 applicants in a 2-week period, right? Because again, I feel like not enough people know that this is available.
And it's been my dream since I've been here to have applications open all the time.
Yeah.
Which is really successful habitats are doing that because they have enough land inventory. And so one of the things we're going to try to do, we've always built single-family homes, and we love the single-family home, as I know you do, because to us it means the empowerment of homeownership and generational wealth, and we can go on and on about that. But, you know, the lack of land inventory here is serious, and we're finding smaller and smaller homes, you know, smaller and smaller homeowner families. So where we used to have huge families coming to us, we're not seeing that as much anymore. So we want to...
That makes sense.
We want to try building some complexes, whether they're going to be condos or land leased, we're not really sure, we're working on that, where we can have 1-bedroom units, 2-bedroom units, and 3-bedroom units to try to accommodate everyone that applies. Some people do find it a little bit too overwhelming, the idea of a house and a yard and all of that, when they've been renting their whole lives and all the utilities that go along with that. And we just think, well, let's maximize our space and maybe build some larger buildings.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's what we're going to try to do.
I mean,
to help more people.
Yeah, and trends change.
Right.
You know, trends change. So that we understand the process, that person gets selected. Now, obviously, there's a lot going on behind the scenes. Explain to people how the whole, like, because obviously you said it best, and I didn't even realize until you actually said it, is we're real estate investors.
Absolutely.
You know, real estate investors with a higher purpose and a higher cause. So how does it all come together, from the land, the finances? How does this come together? Because building is really difficult when you're trying to, you know, try to make money and be as efficient as possible. Doing affordable housing is virtually impossible, usually without like heavy government subsidies. So like, how does it all come together to allow you guys to do this?
And we do get a lot of help from the government, and thank God for that. But up until maybe this year, almost everything that we've ever built on, the land is donated to us.
Got it.
So it will come from the land banks, it will come from different townships, it will come from the county, and that was great. And then, as we know, land prices and home prices went up so dramatically over the last few years that no one's really super interested in just giving their land away. But we're having some success with townships coming to us and saying, look, we have this piece of land, but we're not builders. And they're trying to work with us as a partner. So they'll say, well, we'll own the land, and you guys build the house and put a family into it. We just want to put families into houses any way we can make it work, but we know now is the time when we're going to have to start buying land as well. And we're doing a lot more rehab. So like I said, we are real estate investors. You know, we're cash buyers like all the rest of the people that are listening to your, you know, and we want to be on those lists because not everything works for everybody, as you know, though you buy mostly everything.
I buy anything and everything.
You buy everything. And that's how we met, because I took one of your classes, remember, all those years ago. And at the end, you said, we buy everything. So, you know, we're really pivoting. In fact, we've only ever built for first-time home buyers, because that's part of Habitat's thing. But here on Long Island, where land is so short, what we've decided to do is we really want to impact the whole community. And so now we're building a whole repair program, so we can help anyone on Long Island that, you know, is aging in place or having difficulty they're dealing with contractors that are unreliable or taking advantage of them, we want Habitat to be able to come in as their contractor.
So
And do
you're
repairs, and then they'll do some sweat equity, and then they'll pay us over time.
really,
Yeah.
and so let's talk about the financial aspect of all this, right? So let's start with the houses and go to that. So you have a piece of land, preferably it gets donated, the
Yeah.
government has it. Okay, great. Now you have this piece of land, you have to build there.
Mm-hmm.
How does all that come together from a financial perspective?
So financially, what we're gonna do is, let's say we got the land for free, which was great, and that's what we were used to. Now we're gonna look at what's it gonna cost us internally to build. And I think I came to you years ago and said this, we should be building cheaper. But right now, our standard house, we can build with our own costs and with our own staff, and I mean everything, admin costs, everything. We've got everything in there. We can build for about $300,000.
Okay. How many square feet?
We build 1,400 square feet or less. So somewhere between 900 and about 1,400 is what we're building,
Okay. So
on average.
about like $225 a square foot, something like that.
Right.
But that's rolled in everything. Salaries, administrative fees, like everything
Everything.
rolled in there. Got
Everything.
it. Okay.
So for us, we're looking to cover that nut, of course,
Yeah.
and make a little bit more on each end so that we can pad ourselves for the next build. That's what a nonprofit does.
Yeah, it makes
So
sense.
we're going first to the government. We're gonna get home funds from the county. Suffolk County's been incredibly generous to us, and we couldn't do it without them. We go to the townships and say, do you have any funds to help us? We go to New York State Affordable Housing Corp. We get grants and subsidies. Now, these grants and subsidies, for the most part, will be mortgages against the buyer, but they pay themselves off over time.
Got it. So basically,
So it helps them buy the house at a more affordable. It's still gonna be a $500,000 house, because people think, oh, God, we see a Habitat sign in our neighborhood, we don't want low-income housing. And we're like, yes, you do. It's gonna be a big, beautiful house, and we're gonna sell it at market value.
yeah.
So it's never gonna hurt anyone's value. In fact, we usually bring up the value of the blocks that we build on. But our buyers can't afford to buy a $500,000 house. So we use all these subsidies to buy it down to maybe $200,000 being their cost. And maybe they can get a mortgage of $100,000, and so then we'll give them a mortgage Habitat for the other $100,000.
Got it. Got it. So basically, if there's a $500,000 house, is it actually being sold on paper for 500,000? Okay. So so
100%.
do you guys have to? Are they quote unquote affordable? Meaning, I know, like for example, we're doing that 25 lot subdivision, and
Yeah, I heard about that. That's
and
super cool.
if it ever gets
Congrats.
approved, and 3 of the units have to be affordable, right? So they set limits on exactly what affordable is. Do you guys adhere to that, or no? It's basically it's market.
We sell our houses at market value.
Okay.
If we're building a house that we have to sell over the HUD limit of what's considered affordable housing,
Yeah.
then we'll lose our grants on it.
Okay. So you are
and,
like
and at times we've done that. For example, last year we built out in Greenport Village, and HUD was like, "There's no way we're going to call this affordable housing." That was a 2-bedroom cottage because it's just worth, $700,000.
yeah, big money.
And we said, no, then we'll sell it at $700,000, because for Habitat, we want to make sure that we are improving neighborhoods. We're going to be a good comp. We're never going to bring anything down. So then we just took the hit and we gave up the grants.
Wow.
Yeah.
So then what happens there? You go to donors, you raise as much money as possible to make it
Yes.
as affordable as possible for the person that's buying the house, and then obviously they might have to have a larger mortgage because they're getting an amazing house in the middle of Greenport.
No, actually, the mortgage is always based on that household's income. And it will
Really?
never be more than 30%. So most of our buyers, let's say the household income which is typical for Habitat on Long Island, is maybe $60,000. We're not going to give them a monthly payment that's over $1,500, including their taxes and their homeowner's insurance, all in.
Wow.
Doesn't matter which house we put them in.
So how do you fill the gap?
So the gap is really hard. The gap is really hard. And usually we use grant money for that, because that's part of the buyer's purchase price, and that's what you're gonna see on their closing disclosure.
Yeah.
So we've gotta make that all work from that perspective. Then we have to say, okay, now we spent $310,000. How are we getting that money back? Some of the grant money comes to us, of course, because it's
Okay.
buying down their home price for us, and we're
Yeah.
the seller. So we're getting some of that money. But it's still never enough without sponsorships. So hopefully we get a sponsorship on every house, whether it's A company will give us 20 grand and they'll be a part sponsor. We'll get a full sponsorship is like 150 grand because we usually do get 100 or 150 in grant money.
Yeah.
And that's how we make it work. And then we use the buyer's first mortgage, which they're going to get with Sony Mae because they're the only ones that are going to give them a mortgage with as little down as we're requiring.
Mm-hmm.
And that pays us back. So at the closing, we say, okay, now we
Oh,
have the
because
funds to
it's a
build the
one.
next
It's a
house.
1%. Is it a 1% down payment, or is there no down payment? I know you have to
There's
have
no
1%.
down they have to pay $1,500 down. That's the down payment.
Wow.
And then they need to have a total of about $5,000 with that $1,500 included. So it will not cost them more than $5,000 to own their
Wow.
home. Yeah.
So basically, just to recap this, you build a house. You get land donated. Then you build a house and you sell it at true market value, so it doesn't impact negatively the housing market in that area.
Right.
The person that is buying it is capped at essentially what their mortgage payment is.
Mm-hmm.
So they're only, if it's 200,000 or 250,000 or whatever it is, whatever it's worth, they're only essentially responsible for 200 or 250,000, which is $1,500 a month, including taxes, insurance, anything. Are there any tax breaks associated with their property taxes on there, or they're paying full boat property taxes
They're paying
too?
full property taxes. The only thing that they get, which others would get as well, in addition to STAR, is the first-time home buyer exemption.
Okay.
Which is not available everywhere, but most places that we build, they'll get a first-time home buyer exemption for a while.
Got it.
And so that's what brings our mortgages so low, because the taxes are so high.
Yeah.
You have to include what new construction taxes are going to be on this very modest income family, and that will leave them very little room for a mortgage. Their mortgage can be 80,000. Sometimes it's 200,000. It depends, as you said, on the family size and how
Yeah.
much they're earning. But that's really hard for Habitat because we're like, okay, now we've spent 300 or 320, or
Yeah.
it goes up to 350, or if we have a bigger house, and now we have to recoup that. So if we're only getting maybe $100,000 in grants, and their mortgage is only going to be 80, we're still short 100 grand. So it's
Yeah.
always a scramble for how are we going to finance them.
It's just really interesting too, because then I start thinking about how Nassau and Suffolk had merged. Now, Nassau in the past hasn't done many builds, but now that you're going to do them, the taxes in Nassau are significantly higher. It has to be a lot more difficult, between land. I mean, affordable housing is in general, like people call me at least once a week and they're like, I want to solve the affordable housing problem. I'm like, everybody does.
Yes.
Listen, like we've all been racking our brain to try to do it, and they come up with an idea, but the truth is, it's very, very, very difficult.
It is very
So just so people kind of understand how this comes together again, so if it's a $500,000 house, let's say they're going to have a $200,000 mortgage. That's going to go with Sony Mae. That's going to be basically no money down. And it's
Very little.
the
Almost
interest rates
nothing.
the interest rates fluctuate, or are they fixed at a certain number always? Where's the
So
interest
what
rate?
really saved us, Charles, was we had a program that Sony Mae built for Habitat 15 years ago called the Habitat Mortgage, fixed at 2%.
Doesn't matter what's going on.
Right.
If the rates are 20%, it's still 2%.
And last year they gave it up.
They gave it up?
They gave it up. So this
Meaning
is the
it's-
first
it's
year.
gone?
It's gone.
What are you going to do?
So now we're taking what was a $200,000 mortgage because we will not allow it to hurt our buyers.
Okay.
It's hurting us. And we're saying, okay, now the buyers at Sony Mae at 7% with the down payment assistance loan because we're getting hit for that 3/8 of a point, which we didn't used to. So it's completely changed the money coming back to us because we would say, okay, at the closing, we're going to get back, a lot of what we spent on the build. We'll add that to our grants. We break even. Or maybe we have 20,000 in the pot, start the next build.
Yeah.
And it worked like that for 35 years because up until Sony Mae started that program 15 years ago, Habitat wrote its own mortgages.
Yeah.
And that was great because the people would immediately start paying, but it wasn't enough to finance the next build because there was nothing coming out at closing.
Yeah.
So we went to that model and the state said they would help us and unfortunately they did away with that program last year. So we've had the first 2 closings happening.
Mm-hmm.
We've just, working on clear to closes now. One's closing at 6.5%, the other's closing at 7%. So what that did was drop our loan amount.
Yeah.
Instead of getting $200,000 back at closing, we're talking about 120, and we're out 80 grand. And a nonprofit can't afford that.
Wow.
So we feel like it's really going to negatively impact our future. And
Why did they get rid of that loan?
we couldn't really get a response to that. We have the
Yeah.
Habitat New York State organization, that's lobbying, and we're talking to HCR and saying, can you create a program for every nonprofit then? If that was just for us, they encouraged us
Wow.
to give up writing our own mortgages.
Yeah.
Because that was causing a problem all those years ago, and we
Yeah.
understood that. And it was getting too expensive, and everyone was becoming their own little bank. But yeah, so we weren't prepared for it, and we had people in the process, and we had houses being built, and so they're closing at market rate, but we're taking the hit. We don't want it to be on the buyers, so, and they can't afford it.
So the gap becomes even wider. So there's
The
like,
gap is really wide now, and we're worried about how are we gonna fill that, because there's only so many grants out there. Now we're looking for more private donors to come in. We're trying to interest corporations and saying, look, this can be your build, this can be your Habitat house, and
Yeah.
that's working sometimes, especially if we find land, in an area where a corporation is located, then they do wanna get involved in the build, and we have all kinds of newsletters saying, if you can't afford to, sponsor a whole house, you can sponsor the kitchen, you can sponsor the vanity, pretty much anything that goes into the house, we're looking for donations on,
yeah.
to help us.
So basically, like similar to any other investment, there's like kind of tranches. So the person that's buying this, and it's getting harder and harder and harder, right? So
Yeah.
that person's taking a mortgage out, and that money goes back to Habitat, but the rest of it is grants. So it's
Right.
grants, and it's people that are donating money. So now, I mean, I think people think not-for-profits, and they don't really understand how difficult it is. It's harder to run a not-for-profit, I think, than it is to run a for-profit
Oh, it's
business.
so much harder, it's so much harder.
Because now you have to go out there and you really have to be a 24/7 fundraising and land finding machine.
Absolutely.
So-
And before, we were really at a point where it was easy to break even between our grants and the buyer's mortgage.
Yeah.
And now losing the 2% rate, we can't take an $80,000 hit on every house we build, because nonprofits don't have that, income coming in elsewhere. What really saves us, and what I really want your listeners to know, is we have a Restore, what we call Restore. And Ron Konkama is like a reseller of building supplies. And many years ago, when I started going to all these investor groups, people would say, oh, the Restore's not the same as it used to be. Tom was great, and he was the person in charge of donations. But we have Tom back. And so the store is bringing in really amazing donations again. I mean, windows, doors, furniture, some really high-end stuff. Some of it's brand new, some of it's gently used, but not at your scale, but the local person who's flipping a few houses a year should be shopping at Restore. It's 50 to 80% off.
Yeah.
They're getting brand new vanities, they're getting brand new stuff, for their builds. And every dollar people spend there help us build the next house, So, and also there are a lot of real estate investors that, we've all made a mistake on a flip and said, oh, that vanity doesn't fit.
Yeah.
And so they can, give it to Restore. We can resell that, and they can write it off as a charitable donation.
No, which is amazing. And listen, and
Restore
I didn't
helps us a lot.
I didn't even think about that until we just had this conversation, because my guys love to save everything, and I love them for that, because they're always trying to save me money, which is really much appreciated. But we get to the point where like we have a half a box of tile of this, like we have 400 half boxes of tile,
Right.
and it's like, guys, what are we doing this? We're paying to like move it around. Now I have to get rid of it, so we're paying to throw it out when we shouldn't be doing that. And I think every fix and flip investor, regardless of if you're doing one house a year or 300 houses a year, whenever you have something left over, instead of throwing it out, bring it to Restore, donate it, obviously get the tax write-off, but more importantly, it helps Habitat do what they do.
Right, and one of our biggest programs we call Sponsor for a Day. We'll have a company come out, they donate $2,500, and they basically get the site to themselves with the site super. And so then they use it as a team building exercise, but that's what people think of when they think of Habitat for Humanity.
Yeah.
They want to come out with their friends or their employees and swing a hammer, but it really is an amazing day if you've never done it, especially because then you're going to get a bio on the family you're building for. And people that donate to us and want to get involved, there's small ways to donate, from $50 up to $150,000, but they can come to the dedication and see the family cut the ribbon and get the keys to their house. It really is an awesome experience, especially because you can drive by that in the course of business and be like, hey, I donated their floor, and then I helped put it in, and I know who lives there.
Yeah.
So I think people, as you mentioned, don't know enough about that Habitat is right here on Long Island, and you can be donating to them and writing some of it off. Check with your accountant. And you can really see where your impact is going, you know, where your donation is going. It's a super cool thing.
Now, obviously, and I hope you've gotten full credit for this, but if not, I'm going to give you full credit for this, which is you guys are working with SQ4D and you're going to be 3D printing a house. And I remember you came to me, like we started having this conversation years and years ago.
I think
like
it has to be 4 or 5
years
years ago at this point.
You had to be the first person in Habitat nationwide who's like, we should be 3D printing houses. They're better, they're cheaper, they're faster. Let's do this.
Yes.
And obviously, it took a little while, but we're
took a little
here,
while.
which is super exciting. And then with the right team, which I know you have, this could really, you know, change the game for affordable housing and Habitat across the country if people follow suit.
And I'm very focused at Habitat being, you know, on the cutting edge because we have to be if we're going to survive.
Yeah.
And so in addition to doing the build with SQ4D, we did a build this year using ICF construction, which is like concrete blocks.
Okay. How did that go?
It's gone pretty well. You know, we have to really evaluate it in terms of the other ways that we build and really make sure, you know, we got these materials donated through International. They are a big help to us, you know, from time to time. And, you know, we'll see how it goes. It's really a new thing on Long Island. But again, I'm sure you've heard, and thank God for you, because if we hadn't had that conversation, Sal and I just had this conversation, standing on the dirt, where we're going to build the first 3D affordable house on Long Island. I said, you know, if I hadn't met Charles and just casually mentioned how I feel about 3D printing, and of course, Charles, and all your listeners know, you were like, I know a guy. He's my good friend. And I'm like, what? And a week later, we were making a meeting to go and talk to him, and here we are. So you have to be looking forward. You know, we're talking about, do we build partially modular?
Yeah.
Do we truck in stuff from out of state? You know, do we, whatever it takes. And that's why we've said, you know, we're going to continue to build. We'll always build. We'll always believe in home ownership. But there are plenty of homeowners on Long Island struggling just because they can't afford repairs to their homes. You know, we have a veteran community here where they really just can't even afford to live in homes that they own because they don't know how to pull the equity out of that. And I'm a loan officer. We have another loan officer on site at Habitat. And I'm like, why can't we do something? You know, why can't we do something? Why can't we help these people figure it out? Because there's a lot of equity in their homes. And so we really want to be a resource. You know, we're a construction company, really. But I'm like, you know, we can be, now I want to build ADUs because the county is big on ADUs. So I'm like, we should
Are they
be
letting
building
people
them.
do that at this point?
ADUs are a big thing. I know for Suffolk County, they're really, we want to get our contractor's license, which we never actually had before because we only build on land we own, but we just applied for it. So we can start, you know, really being a resource for all of Long Island and not just for first-time home buyers.
I mean, ADUs I know are huge nationwide. I always see them on TikTok. All investors are always talking about them. Long Island never had them. I know that there's been talks of it. Is it, you can do it? Do you know? Or is it still in the works?
You can do it. You can do it. And they are, if you're a low to mid-income household, there's a lot of help out there for you from the county and from the state, where you can get zero interest loans and all kinds of deferrals. So they are looking for contractors they can trust. And we want to go back to the 240 houses we built and say, are you guys okay? Do you need some extra income? Do you need help? Because maybe we can build this for you. Because we all have to get creative. Like you said, everyone wants to solve affordable housing.
That's a
but
game changer.
We live on an island and there's only so much land. And now we're going to our local county and town officials and saying, look, there's a lot of commercial space out there. We don't need more offices. Are you willing to change the zoning? The big pieces of land, the land pieces that we want, are commercial. So we're asking for help to get that zoning changed. You know, we want to build huge developments.
Yeah, and listen, it's, you know, kudos to you and everybody over there who really, it's a relentless process. Like, you know, we started talking about 3D printing 4 years ago. Here we are, but it has not been easy.
No.
And I mean, shout out to Town of Islip, who I understand has been like has played a real intricate part in getting that build done and donating the land and really, really getting involved, which is very cool. But it takes a village, right?
It really does. It really does. And that's the thing that does work for us. Everybody's heard of Habitat. Everybody kind of knows a little bit, but not enough, but they want to help. And so that's an interesting thing about us being a real estate investor. You really have to know real estate because we can sometimes take a piece of land that no one else wants And they're like, oh, there's zoning issues, you need a variance, you're never gonna get it. And I'm like, if anyone's gonna get it, we're gonna get it.
Yeah.
You know, as opposed to the random builder, because we do have a lot of support, you know. So if we go to the town officials and say, hey, you need affordable housing, we know how to build affordable housing, gotta make this land work for us.
Yeah.
You know, we get a lot of support that way. We couldn't do it without that.
No, this is awesome. And listen, thank you so much for coming. It's an honor and pleasure to have you as a friend. Hopefully we get to work together in Habitat in some capacity
Yes,
in the
for
future,
sure.
because I would love to be a part of it in any way I can and really make an impact for people and for you guys. So for those of you, I mean, obviously you guys need everything.
We need everything.
If there are investors out there who have materials that they can donate, if there are companies out there that want to have a great team building event and want to donate to a worthy cause, if there are people that want to donate land, if there are big companies that want to sponsor entire builds or kitchens or bathrooms or whatever, how do they get in touch with you guys? How do they reach out?
Our website is the easiest. It's habitatliny.org. I'm Diane at habitatliny.org. So if you just want to reach out to me, say, I want to get involved, not sure what I can do, you know, we can go over the options. Because the Restore was so grateful that you invited me here today, they want to give all of your listeners 10% off.
Nice.
So they should just say they came in from the
Handsome Home Buyer
podcast.
I love
and
it.
They'll give them 10% off. at
That's
the
very
store.
cool.
So yeah, we appreciate any help we can get. And even if you can't afford to help, come out and build with us. It's really going to be an inspiring day, and we can always use the volunteers.
So do we have, so first let me talk about that, the Restore. So obviously, if you're a fix and flip investor and you're just getting started, if you're doing 1 to 4 and you have the time to really go there and every dollar counts, because let's face it, every dollar does count, the discounts are massive and now you have an additional 10%. So, you know, if a door is normally $500, you're getting that door for $200, it all adds up. So definitely
Absolutely.
check it out. In regards to the 3D printed house, do we have a date where ground is being broke? Do we know when that's going to happen?
So we were very excited because we had a date, which is a week from today. And now, as you know, it will not stop raining.
Yes.
It just won't stop raining. So we're working on whether or not we can make it work. And
Yeah.
I know Sal is working really hard for us. He's been amazing. And as you said, 3D printing, I do believe it's going to change building. I really do.
Yes.
It's just that when you're the first, as you know, you keep bumping heads with
Yeah.
everyone that doesn't understand it. But anyone that wants to reach out to us, we'll let you know. If it's not going to be next Wednesday in Brentwood, we'll let you know when it is going to happen, because we really want you to come, and we have a lot of town officials and folks coming that are interested to see, you know, what SQ4D is doing, and we're going to help them change the world. We're excited.
I love it.
Thank you for the introduction, because we couldn't do this without you and Sal's team and all the support you guys have given us. It's unbelievable.
It's amazing. It's just the beginning. There's a lot more exciting things to come. So thank you, everybody. Habitat for Humanity. Obviously, you know, if you have a house that you want to sell, if you don't want to donate it to Habitat, you know I want to buy it. That's a wrap.
Thank you. That was awesome. Thank you so much. That was really cool.